the conversation, could you two introduce each other or introduce yourselves, and then kind of just give a brief history of your involvement at FPC-Holt, how long you've been coming here, and how you started to come, and why you love FPC-Holt. So Diana, do you mind going first?
Okay. Yes. Roger and I have been members of FPC-Holt for 45 years, and we started going to the Presbyterian Church in Holt because I lived in Holt, and we were married in a Presbyterian church of Roger's. So his family's lineage has been Presbyterian. So I was not brought up in church as a young person, and I have grown as an adult. The reason why I love this church and I work in a lot of missions is because for probably 40 years of my time at the church, I've had to work outside the home. Mm-hmm. And I promised myself and God that when I retired, that I would volunteer for anything and everything that I could, starting with my church. And so that's why I pop up here and there, volunteering to do the things that I do.
Yeah. Pop up more than here and there. You pop up a lot. What all are you involved in at the church?
Well, I am a wedding coordinator and have been that maybe over 20 years. I also serve on the board of ACT Uganda, which is Agape Community Transformation. And it's a mission in Uganda that is supported by many churches in Michigan. And I was introduced to it to a past member of our church. And I said, you know what, mission, I'm in. So I did go to Uganda, and I've been there 5 times. Oh, and it's a passion. And the wonderful thing is that our church recognizes ACT Uganda and supports it in many ways, as they do many other missions. I also, when I first retired, I worked in the office before Myra was hired.
Did you really?
Yeah, I trained Myra, kinda.
I had no idea.
Yeah. We had lost the church secretary at the time, and because it was my first year of retirement, they brought me on, and I worked there about 4 or 5 months, and then they hired Myra, and she came in. Gosh, you know, I'm an elder for the second time. I chair a committee for the Witness Committee, which involves missions in the work of the community in the world. And it gives me great pride and much compassion to do something for somebody else, because I spent a lot of years working and not dedicating the time I could have or wanted to for church. And so they're my priority now.
Gotcha. So that's really cool. You've kind of realized that, I hear that kind of tension of like when you were working, you wanted to spend more time with the church, and now that you're not, that you're retired, you can really give your all into the church. And that's a testament to the amount of things that you're involved in and the ways that you've been lovingly present for our congregation for many years.
We also have a sewing group that meets, of course not this year, at the church, and they also have been gracious with, we started the pillowcase dress mission, and we made pillowcase dresses for many, many, many years. It started off with an actual pillowcase, and you made it into a dress with straps. And we take them over to Uganda, and people would walk for miles and stand in long lines in the heat just to receive a new dress. And then that has flourished into helping Act Uganda, and we have many people that when I bring back African fabric, they make things to sell.
Awesome.
So yeah,
I have
yeah,
never heard of a pillowcase dress before. You have to
yep.
pass along the instructions, and maybe we can add that on for the VBS activities for the week.
So our sewing group that meets not often, but are way into being compassionate about doing a project. So all I have to do is say, let's do a project, and we have time set up at the church, and we get together and we do it.
And you all are on it. That's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you, Diana. Heidi,
You're welcome.
would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your connection to the church, why you love it, how long you've been here?
Well, I'm Heidi Hill, and if you don't know the Hills, you're in trouble. It seems like there's a hill in with their hands in something at the church always, you know. I mean, Mom and Dad, Joe and Sherry Hill, started coming to the church about the time Kirk became pastor at Holt. And so we've kind of been around since then. We didn't actually join the Presbyterian church until after Evie was born so that she could be baptized in the church. That's a common theme I see around the church. People wait until either marriage or birth before they join. But so that's how that happened with us.
Definitely not alone in that.
Right. And that was actually in Muskegon, and Chad was working in Muskegon at the time, and that was Pastor Roush out at Muskegon First Press. And so he's a pretty cool guy. If you haven't gotten a chance to meet him yet at one of the Presbyterian meetings, you'll enjoy him. He's hard to miss. He's very tall.
Oh, okay.
But then we moved back to the Lansing area, and it was just a natural transition to go to Holt. Even though we moved to Mason and there's a Presbyterian church in Mason, we're like, why would we do that? We already know all the people at Holt. And it's really not that much further to drive. So that's how that happened, and that was about 6 years ago. So 6 years ago in February that we've been at Holt First Press.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and almost immediately after we transferred our membership from Muskegon to Holt, I became a deacon, and then Diana went off of the board of deacons, and somehow I became the moderator for deacons. So that's kind of where I've been. I've helped in VBS.
You took my place.
I think you graciously handed it over. But I've helped with VBS for the last 6 years. The Sunday school waterworks, I've helped teach school. I've helped with the sewing for Act Uganda, the pillowcase dresses, and you cut out an armhole and you put a ribbon through it and it makes a dress. It's very simple, but we've spent many Sundays doing that, and it seems to be maybe 3 or 4 Sundays throughout the winter before they would go in the spring that we would get together, usually on a Saturday morning. And it would be cool because you'd have, like, I don't know, 6 to 10 sewing machines lined up on one side, and then you got 5 or 6 women sitting there ironing, or 5 or 6 women cutting. So it was like an assembly line. It went around and around. Gone through a lot of thread with that one. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, so it sounds like sewing and kind of making these projects are something that's not new with the mask making.
No, not at all.
Right? So this is just kind of like the next line, which I didn't realize that. I was totally amazed when, I mean, I think the number is up over 1,000 masks now, and I was just like, how did you all just?
I think the actual numbers are well over 2,000 now. I think we started losing count after a while. Maybe in the end of May we were at 1,700, and I couldn't even tell you how many that I've made since then.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So this was kind of a natural transition. Like you name the other projects that you all have done. So when this pandemic hit, It's like, well, we do masks. Or what's the story behind how you all started making masks this spring?
How it started for me was that I spent a couple of months in Florida at the beginning of the year, and when I came back in mid-March, Kurt called and said, "How are you doing? By the way, Heidi is, I've got her on board to make masks, and I know you would be graciously helping. So I asked for you to see if you can get a group started. Contact Heidi," and that's all it took, because I knew that that was a calling for me one more time. And Heidi's amazing. She's outsown all of us, but we can whip through those. So it was a call from Kurt that said, "Let's, if you don't mind, let's get a group going."
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things happen around here from a call from Kirk.
For me, it was an initial call from Kirk. Actually, the beginning of March, when everything started, the end of February, beginning of March, when everything first started circulating and all the news reports and everything, I have a girlfriend. I've known her 10 plus years. She works as a postal carrier, and they had already started talking about having to wear masks at work. And she didn't sew, but she knows that I do a little bit of everything with crafts. I'm a crafty person. So she asked me if I would be willing to make her a couple of masks, if I had any fabric, and if I would make her a couple of masks. And I'm like, okay, if you show me a pattern, then I guess I could make you a couple of masks. And she sent me a pattern from the Deaconess Hospital in Illinois. And they had already started circulating the pattern on their website, asking for masks to be donated to the hospital in Illinois. And I'm like, well, this is pretty simple. I mean, you just cut 2 rectangles, you cut a little bit of elastic and sew them together, and that be that. Well, so I made her like 4 masks. And then other people started asking me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't really afford to do this for everybody. So I actually started selling masks.
Really?
And yes, I did. I started selling them for like $5 a piece, just so that I could resupply my supply.
Yeah.
And then it came to the point where we had run completely out of elastic. And you couldn't buy elastic anywhere, because once the word got out about masks, you could not buy elastic anywhere. And we're like, what are we going to do? So I started making them with ribbons to tie, so that you could tie them around your head with ribbons, because I had tons of ribbon from craft stuff, whatever. Well, then it must have been about middle of March or so. Diana called me, and Bonnie called me, and Jan Babcock called me, and they're like, we have elastic. Can we make some for church? The Delhi Fire Department wanted some, and the MSU Veterinary Clinic wanted some, and the post office was asking for some. And it was at that time when school was called off and they started doing the lunches for the kids. And I had been talking to the principal at North Aurelius Elementary School here in Mason, and he's like, hey, we could use a couple, because he found out somehow that I was making masks. And it's like, it just blew up from there. And then we had a bunch of elastic just miraculously show up, and people started to, no, I'm serious. And then we had people starting to donate all kinds of fabric, and I don't know, I started keeping track at the beginning of how many masks I had made to give away and to sell and everything. And I got well over 500, and I'm like, I ain't keeping track anymore. it got insane. And I have no clue. I've made enough. And I'm still making, and I've got my sewing machine right here, because I was working on them earlier. And Arnold, Nancy Coppernall's son, he actually made this stand.
Uh-oh. We can't hear you, Heidi. I think you're covering the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, my phone's ringing. I gotta turn it off. Sorry. Ivan made that stand in middle school, and he was going to throw it away. And I'm like, hey, I might be able to use that for something. So then I started stacking all the supplies for mask making, so it just sits all there, right there.
And then we started getting the requests from different members of our church. And Heidi was kind of like the trafficker, and she was getting the messages, and then she'd send it out. Who's got 10 masks that can deliver to so-and-so? And so then I started delivering a lot of them and taking pictures and sending them into Myra. And it was fun to see them receiving masks. And that was the delight of it, is making, and I've made it for a lot of outside people too.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, such an amazing display of how we care for our congregation. It was just that, like, even with the pandemic going on, you all were going out making this and then still going to people's houses to like pass them out and leave them on the porch and all that good stuff.
I even went to one place, they didn't want me to come even 6 feet, so I just put the masks in a baggie, and like the newspaper man, I just threw them out on the grass. And they waved to me on the porch.
Whatever works. Yeah. So you gave them to people in our congregation, but then you started to distribute them into like the wider community and even outside of the community, right? Like, do you know what's the furthest your masks made it?
I've sent masks as far as Texas.
Are you serious?
I have sent masks to California, to the San Bernardino Valley area where I have relatives. I've sent masks up to the UP in Munising and Marquette. We sent some down to Florida. I know Sherry Hill sent some to her brother in Florida. Where else did we sent some? You sent some to Detroit, I believe, Diane.
Oh yeah, I was at a dollar store in the Wayne County with a girlfriend of mine, and social distancing, and a lady behind me said, "Do you make masks?" And I said, "I do." "How much?" I said, "We don't charge." And she worked for United Airlines, and she said, "Would you make us some?" So that's how that connection came about, and I sent over 20 to the United Airlines, and they had taken pictures, and I had, forwarded them. So yeah, it was word of mouth, and people were asking everywhere.
I wonder how that woman in the dollar store knew that you made masks.
Because I was paying for my stuff, and my girlfriend that was with me said, "Oh, by the way, my friend here makes masks." And then so the person behind me went, "You make masks?"
Oh. What's that I hear?
Yeah.
That's how it happens a lot of times. I'll when I was going to the grocery store, I'd always carry a few, like, big stash right now. This bag is nothing but masks. I've got bags and bags of masks that I've made.
Wow.
And I started putting them all in little individual baggies. I'm sure you've seen them at church, in the bowl at church by the door.
Oh yeah.
And it makes it so much easier. But I keep a couple in my purse in the car, so if we like go to the store or we go through like a drive-through or something, and they like, I don't hide them. I just kind of leave them out. So if somebody asks, I'm like, "Here, throw one at you."
Go for it. Yeah.
It's crazy how many you actually distribute just that.
Yeah, I love that openness and kind of listening to the Spirit, and like being available and open for people to, if they need one, that they can take one. That's pretty awesome. Do you know how many people were sewing masks, like in your group, or was it just you two, or how many?
Oh, no. There was me, there was Diane, Sherry Hill made quite a few, Jan Babcock made quite a few, Barry Crossweller, he made quite a few. Bonnie didn't really help with sewing, but she helped with cutting fabric and cutting elastic. Maury also helped with that.
Cheryl Gambler.
Yeah, Cheryl helped with making quite a few. There's somebody else, Susan Brown helped with making some. There's got to be somebody else that I'm missing too.
Yeah, we apologize for that, but as people in our church started hearing about the few that were sewing, I want to do it too.
Yeah.
So
Oh
there
yeah,
was probably, what would you say, Heidi, at least 6?
there was at least 6 or 7 of us that were helping to sew.
Pretty amazing. I mean, the ministry, it sounded like the ministry was contagious. Little pun there.
Yeah.
And people were looking and looking hard for masks. You know, they weren't available.
Yeah.
So they were grabbing on as soon as they heard that we had a source.
Yeah.
They were very grateful.
Yeah. How did you all experience God?
And it seems like there's been like as we hit June, we kind of slowed down in the amount of masks that we were making. But people are now, not so much for adult masks, but children's masks are really big right now. And that's what I've been focusing on. Well, because everybody is so hopeful that in the fall that children will be able to go back to school. And from the sounds of it, they're going to have to at least wear masks when they enter the building, when they're in the hallways, if they go to the bathroom type thing. If they're outside of their regular classroom, they will have to wear masks. So people are starting to request those. So I've started making smaller masks for kids.
Yeah. So that's pretty incredible. I mean, it's unfortunate that we still have to keep wearing masks and that that the pandemic isn't over yet. But at the same time, it just shows again how open you are to adapting and to making sure this ministry keeps going. Pretty cool. How did this ministry, this mask making, did you have like a God moment or like a time when you sensed that God was at work in all of your work making these masks?
I would say several God moments, and some of them were from people in our church that I would deliver mass to with tears in their eyes. And you know you're doing the right thing. And just talking to you makes me have goosebumps. It's a beautiful thing with the looks on people's faces when they receive them. Those were God moments for me.
Yeah, so the kind of that relationship aspect of it, it wasn't just making the mask, but then delivering it to somebody and seeing
The recipients, right?
Seeing how meaningful it was for them.
That's the true deacon in her. But no, it really is. It's the deacon in us, you know, that compassion, that fellowship, that connection with everybody. For me, it was just, it's the see a need, fill a need. You know, somebody asked me to do it, and that's how it all kind of snowballed from there and has continued. Is if there's a need, I mean, if I have 5 minutes, I can make a mask. If I have 10 minutes, I can maybe make 2 or 3 masks, you know, I mean.
We're getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of showed you my supply, but I cut out multiple pieces all at once. I get a whole bunch of fabric all cut out. Then I get a whole bunch of elastic all cut out. So I have like a little pile, and all these are individually cut. So it's one for, you know, I use 2 on each mask type thing. So everything is ready. So if I have 5-10 minutes, I can make 1 or 2 or 3 masks or whatever, and then it never really stops. It just keeps going.
Yeah. So you, I hear in both of you, Heidi, you said it's just being a deacon, which is something that you both are ordained into, which really highlights your leadership in the church, that sense of being called by God to do this wonderful ministry. Right now it's mask making, but as like you all shared when you first introduced yourself, this is a call that God has on your life in many, many different areas of the church and for many years. And that is just beautiful to see. I'm so grateful for this church and for the ways that we lift each other up, and that we realize that leadership and ministry comes from everybody, that we all have a call on our lives from God. And you all are just living testaments to that. And I'm so grateful for you all.
We're just a piece of the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Amen to that. We're just one spoke in the wheel.
Yeah.
It takes a couple dozen spokes to make the wheel go round.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much for sharing sharing your story about mask making, and for sharing a little bit of your story with the church. And I look forward to hearing more of that as we grow deeper in our relationships together. So I just thank you so much for being vulnerable and for sharing that with everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. Honora and Kristen and James, do you all have any questions for Heidi and Diana? No? Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. Yeah, you all shared a lot. And if any questions for those of you who are watching on the YouTube, you can comment below any questions, and I'll make sure to watch out for that and to forward any questions that you will have to Heidi and Diana. But thank you all for being here and for sharing your story.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay. All right, now
ready?
you're good. Yeah.
Okay, so you have to take 2 pieces of fabric. These are child size. So if you want to know the dimensions, they're 7 by 5 inch pieces of fabric. And you take them and you put right sides together. And you just line them up.
Oh.
Like that. See, the right sides are together, so wrong sides are showing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to turn this a little bit so that you can see. Okay. Yeah. And I start about 2/3 of the way down the fabric. I'll put my thing and I'll back it up just a little bit to do a back stitch. And then I go real fast. Not real fast. Gotta get the right size for the left. That was my adult size in my little bucket that I showed you a few minutes ago. For children's size, I use 5.5 inches of elastic, and I put it in between the 2 pieces of fabric. Line it up so that it's right to the corner. So when I sew all the way around, it'll be on the inside. So when I turn it out, it'll be coming out, which I'll show you.
In other words, it's inside.
Right. Well,
pieces.
This way makes it so that your mask is reversible. So if you want to wear it with Harry Potter showing, you can. Or if you want to, this fabric happens to be like a water droplet type looking fabric, so you could wear that outwards too.
Like a waterworks themed mask.
Yeah.
You should get some of those for downstairs.
I could totally do that. I got a whole pile of that fabric.
That would be so cool.
And it takes, like, if I were cutting the fabric and cutting the elastic and, grabbing the wrong elastic, and cutting the elastic and then starting to sew just one, it would probably take me about 15 minutes or so from start to finish to make a mask. But if I'm doing like a mass production or whatever, because I have everything cut already, it takes me about 5 minutes, I would say, to do a mask.
Wow.
If I'm not talking, then I can do it quicker.
And by the way,
I get distracted.
And by the way, the group is always looking for donations of 100% cotton.
Yes,
Okay.
like
Or-
quilting cotton. It has to be a quilting cotton, not a stretch jersey.
Okay.
Right, it has to be 100% cotton. And because all of the sewers have been donating their own fabric and elastic and our time, which is what we choose to do, but we'll always take donations.
Okay, so before I turn it right side out, see, I sewed all the way around except for about 1.5 inches here. And that 1.5 inches that's not sewn, I'll open that up and I just stick my thumb in there and I go to a corner and I'll pull it.
Huh.
And when you pull it like that, then you get the elastic, and then that's where you see the elastic on the side.
Oh,
And then you have the rectangle. So now I got to pleat it. So to pleat it, I'll put it back down and I'll start in a corner, all the way in a corner. And I usually start on the top edge where that hole is and line that up so that it's kind of flat. And sometimes I got to pull it a little bit to get it going. And I go just along the whole edge, and then I have to stop at the corner. And depending on who's making them, they have special ways that they pleat them. Sometimes they pleat them before they go to sew the top stitch. I just kind of eyeball it with mine because I've made enough of them. I kind of know where the pleat needs to be, type thing. So I just kind of hand pleat it, and then I go down the bottom, straight across. And then I come back up, and you got to kind of hand pleat it again.
Okay. What do the pleats do?
It makes it so it's more conforming to your face.
Okay, so it kind of fits better.
Yeah.
It allows you to pull it up to your nose and under your chin.
Right. Okay. So like this is a child size. See, it ends up like this, and then when a child puts it on, it would flatten out so you could see it. Because this is a child size, this wouldn't really fit me. But with an adult size, I'll grab an adult size one, which just so happens to be Harry Potter also.
Yes.
See, and I made it the exact same way with the 3 little pleats. Okay. You put it on like this over the nose, over the ears, and around the chin. And then it flattens out and you can see the design.
Okay, that's cool.
And just like that, you can also, just like the other one, you can reverse it. So this one just happens to be Little Mermaids. I don't know if you can see the Little Mermaids.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that.
And the dork in me says that it's got to be the Goblet of Fire, right? Because there's mermaids on one side and then Harry Potter on the other.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's how you make one.
That's cool. So without those pleats, if it wasn't able to kind of come up above your nose and under your chin, the mask would just be kind of straight across and your nose would be exposed with it?
Well, it would still cover your nose and your chin, but it would be like, it would go straight across all the way. It wouldn't conform more, so it wouldn't fit as well on the sides and hold it on the bottom more. It would be kind of floppy.
Okay. Very cool. There's like attention to details. I like it.
There's a test.
Yeah.
There's a test.
You have to come to a sewing day.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think I have one that's in the midst of being made.
Uh-oh, we lost you again, Heidi.
I don't believe that there's one that I have in the middle of being made without so that you can kind of see. No, I don't think so. Oh, I know there was one. I must have finished it. No, here we go. It's halfway made. It's halfway made.
Whoa,
so
that is fancy.
if I didn't, so like you would fold over, it would go like this. I don't have the elastic all the way, so but see how it's not conformed? It would just be a flat piece of fabric. Gotcha. But by putting the pleats in it, it makes it sit close to your face.
Yeah, okay.
So otherwise it would be sitting straight out and it'd be open and
it'd be a little awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is so cool. Thanks for the demonstration.
No problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will edit that into the video that gets posted on YouTube so that everyone can see it, because that's super interesting.
Yeah, and I'll have to save that. I'll have to for sure save that. Save the waterworks fabric.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
I didn't even think about that before.
Yeah.
I'll have
You
to
have
save that.
some waterworks specific masks. Pretty sweet.
Right. Now we'll have to see if I can find some Presbyterian fabric. That would be funny. Do one
Yeah.
side Presbyterian fabric and one
Yeah.
side the waterworks.
With the seal on it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, right.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Y'all are amazing. And thanks to Nora, Brian, Kristen, and James for joining us. And thanks for everybody out there who's watching on YouTube as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. See ya.
You too. Bye.